I've been renegotiating some old business relationships lately, and it's not because anything went wrong, not because there was a big blow up or betrayal, but because I changed. And when you start recovering from people pleasing, you don't just renegotiate contracts or rates, you renegotiate who gets access to you. Now, for most of my life, my nervous system believed something very specific, that unless I was extremely generous with my time, my energy, my emotional availability, I wouldn't be worthy of attention or opportunities. And that belief didn't start in business, it started way earlier. And when something is all you've ever known, you don't even realize there's a problem. You bring it to school, you bring it into your friendships, and eventually you bring it to work. So when that belief followed me into my professional life, I accepted things that, well, looking back, they don't feel like they were very fair, but I accepted breadcrumbs. And I was grateful for them because my nervous system had never experienced authentic, reciprocal, even handed exchanges. Not at home, socially, or professionally. I didn't even know how to do it. And when our personal relationships are uneven or unhealthy, they kind of act like termites in the walls, quietly eating away at our self esteem. Even our dignity, our ability to expect kindness, our ability to stand up for ourselves and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. We might not notice it right away, but over time, the structure begins to feel unsound. I didn't realize how much my personal life had trained me to accept transactional relationships. People whose goals, consciously or unconsciously, let's be fair, was to see how much they could get and how little they could give back. At first, I was just happy to be included, to be chosen, to be considered. So when someone offered me something, even if it was small, I gave more. I thought, if I could just show them how valuable I am, they'll give me more, right? But the truth was that breadcrumbs was all they were ever going to give me. And then they would simply move on to someone else willing to accept what they were willing to offer. The exchanges were different for them. But looking back now, it's clear. It's like I've pulled down the drywall and I finally see the damage underneath because those termites are quite little buggers. And what I accepted felt inconsequential in the moment. I was really accommodating, but over time it added up. And that's how I became chronically underpaid, undervalued, underappreciated. And when I finally started to assert myself, there was this quiet, shaming voice inside that said, how dare you suddenly decide you deserve more? That's not the plan. I even remember that voice from my childhood saying, who do you think you are? But I've changed. Honestly, I had nothing to lose, so I changed. And I started recovering from all that overgiving, from underbeing, from shrinking myself to fit into relationships that were never built to hold or even nurture me. And this recovery taught me something radical. Did you know that this is meant to be an abundant world? But abundance only works if you expect it and are ready to accept it, and which isn't easy at first. I mean, what's the catch, right? But when we start to change and mutuality is not offered, which happens more, we can stop negotiating and giving away our worth because we've learned to notice and we remember and we walk away, not in resentment, not to punish them. We just align with the reality of who they are, not of who they say they are. Because boundaries are an inside job, so we have to notice first. And that grows with our self-worth, our self-love. And what people used to get from us suddenly isn't available anymore. So we live on different terms now. I'm a pretty friendly and open person. You might have figured that out. People may have easy access to my time, my energy, my generosity of spirit, my sense of humor, my care. But now they have to demonstrate that this is going to be reciprocal. That's true in my personal life and in my business life. And when people start negotiating or trying to influence my energy or control my time, with that subtle edge of judgment, you know what I'm talking about. It's in their tone, in their need to control. I mean, we're available, but they have more of a maybe later energy. And when I reflect back on those conversations, I can feel it in my body. And I realize they were actually just watching and evaluating me, but they weren't that into me. And now I have people who are into me, and I notice the difference, what I should have been seeing. And when we want to work or play with someone, it should feel collaborative and natural. And that's my natural place for me, collaboration. But when they're not really in the same energy, even if we want similar outcomes, I can feel that control in my body, and I know we're not aligned. Now, let me be clear. Transactional relationships aren't wrong. Some people are just wired that way naturally. Everything is a contract or an agreement. They have clear roles. They start, they end, they move on to the next task with or without you. It's not important. And that works for a lot of people, but I am not transactional. I'm relational. I don't need intimacy or deep friendship in business. I don't need to braid your hair or share deep personal family secrets, but I do need to relate, to resonate enough to collaborate with mutual regard, human warmth, peer-to-peer respect. And now that I have boundaries, the people in my inner circle have the capacity to be decent and supportive. There's no fear of judgment or power plays between us. It's really nice. And when relational people work with rigidly transactional people, something subtle happens. We get anxious. We try harder. We give more because closeness feels just out of reach. And if you grew up hungry for connection through emotional neglect, being marginalized or scapegoated, that hunger doesn't disappear just because you're now an adult. It follows you into work, into your adult relationships. I had a friend at one point who only ever called me in a crisis. If her life was going well, she wasn't even available. But when she called, she'd say, "Oh, thank God you picked up. I need a friend so badly right now." Magic words to me. It meant everything because I'm relational. Being a good friend matters to me. So of course I showed up. Of course, I saw this as an opportunity to grow closer. And for a couple of years, that dynamic played out. And she needed to talk and I was available. And I needed to talk and I had to make an appointment. She'd see if she could fit me in. She was busy, What a way to make me feel important. But when her crisis would pass, she would just disappear again. And now our kids do that when they're separating from us. They'd rather only talk to us when they're in a crisis. We're their backup. But when they become adults, if we're both healthy enough, there's a natural dance that starts to happen where we call each other. Honestly, it's really nice. Now, let's go back to my friend. Eventually, I found the courage to talk to her about it because I'd hoped for some good moments together. And I told her that hanging out, maybe a coffee or a walk, a movie, just hanging out. She was kind of surprised, not unkind, just genuinely surprised. I mean, she had a partner for all that. She explained that she had different friends for different purposes and for different seasons. One for church, one for shopping, one for finances, one for emotional crises. Her life was structured like a corporation, and I realized I was her HR department. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She wasn't malicious. She just wasn't relational. And I was starving to see her more. Over time, that realization helped me understand so many relationships, personal and professional, that I had felt hurt by, especially with people who are kind of critical by nature. The type, they ask you how you are, and it's more to gather information, and then they respond in ways that feel more corrective or controlling. They like to observe and evaluate you, like that nosy parental figure who asks about your life just to tell you what you're doing wrong. Now, if you reflect back, you'll notice something else. They don't actually share much about themselves now, do they? It kind of feels hierarchical. It can be a sibling too, or a peer. This isn't about age. If you're someone who cares deeply and seeks closeness, that hurts. And if you start people pleasing, you can get stuck there because the dance starts to feel familiar. So you just keep repeating it. But here's the lesson. We don't have to stay in relationships where there's no real relating. Transactional connections are fine when they're clearly defined. I mean, we don't expect a close relationship with our pharmacist, but if we're relational and we've been there a lot, we might actually develop a bit of an attachment to that person. One of my clients got confused. It's easy to do. And at work or at business, when we confuse emotional hunger with opportunity, we end up negotiating against ourselves. Now, I ask myself a deeper question. Can this person meet me as a trusted collaborator or a peer, even if the roles are different, even if the power isn't equal? There has to be a sense of balance for me. There has to be mutual respect. And if that person needs total control over the dynamics for them to feel safe, that's important information. It doesn't make them bad. It just means they're not someone I can work alongside with for any length of time. And sometimes that means leaving money on the table. And that's still better than losing parts of myself again. Nobody gets as tangled up as I was without a lot of help along the way. And nobody heals from those dynamics without a whole new committee. We have to have new role models, new people we can experience safe, respectful, relational exchanges with. I am where I am emotionally today because I didn't heal alone. I healed alongside others. Some were ahead of me in recovery. Some I paid for their services. Some I met and now we walk side by side. And some pay me now to show them the way, like a good pharmacist. Recovery is a journey, not a destination, and those old hurts don't disappear. Some are kind of traumatic, but when we witness those bits, we get to rebuild. We redirect our energy into healthier relationships. We have to practice first in our personal lives, and then we practice out into the real world, in business or work, in social circles, maybe a hobby, a church. That's where we learn to be healthier with ourselves around other people. And when we do that, something powerful starts to happen. Our income improves, not because we're hustling harder, but because we stopped accepting breadcrumbs. We stop negotiating away our worth. We start choosing win-win relationships with people who can meet us in a collaborative, relationally healthy way. And that kind of changes everything. Now, if any of this has been resonating with you, if you're noticing yourself kind of outgrowing those old dynamics at work, or maybe in your personal life, you don't have to figure this out alone. This is the kind of supportive work that I do with people who are learning how to relate without abandoning themselves. To get to self-love, the curriculum's the same, but you get to decide when and the pace. After all, you do deserve joy. You deserve a self-concept that reflects your strengths. And if the people who once had access to you never experienced boundaries before, it might be time to introduce a few. But I promise you this, the more intentionally you choose who has access to your time, your energy, the better you'll sleep, the better you'll feel, and the more your work and income will reflect your true value. I think it's worth a try because you matter.